Lately, I've been using Cursor for my engineering work quite a lot. And as a Neovim user, this experience kind of sucked at first. But now that I'm a few months in, I'm starting to figure out how to use Cursor and how to have a good time over there. And a big part of what I do is a dual workflow with Cursor and Neovim. So that's what I want to show you in this video. So I'll quickly show you how I set up Cursor as a Vim user, and then I'll show you my workflow where I bounce back and forth between Cursor and between Neovim as I build out a feature. And of course, I will be showing you an actual use case where I'm building a real feature for an application of mine. And lastly, you might be wondering why I'm even using Cursor at all. Like here I am a Neovim guy and there's Neovim tools for AI. Why aren't I using those? Well, let me just say that every single engineer that I know is using Cursor for their work. Just let that sink in for a second. It's not only the most productive way that I know to work with AI when you're developing software, but it's also the most cost-effective way. And I think that you'll be convinced about the effectiveness of Cursor as a software developer from this video. All right, so I'm in here, I have some source code and I'm using tmux. So I can do all of the, nice terminal things that I might want to do, including open Neovim. So here's my code in Neovim. And we're going to be working between this Neovim environment and Cursor. So I'll start by opening up Cursor and I'm going to show you how I've configured this. Now the reason I open it from here is because then I know that I'm opening Cursor to the actual project that I'm currently at. And my goal is to not use my mouse as much as possible. So initially Cursor presents me with this, but then I can type Control B and that's gonna Command B on Mac, and that's gonna show me my file tree. And so that could be useful. Another thing I could do is type Command Option B or Control Option B, and I can see my chat. And as soon as I open the chat, I can immediately start typing. So you can see how, as a person who wants to use their keyboard more and use the mouse less, this is actually pretty conducive to that. And I can do other things in here. So let's say I had some files open. So I can type Command B like this, and I can start searching for stuff. And so maybe I want to search in my Zazenbot. I'm going to open up my app, and maybe I want to open up my config for some reason, and then I can see this one here too. It's Option, Command, and then to the side, to the right and left. And so I can move between these. So this is all VS Code stuff, but I just want to show you how you can use Cursor and basically have a good time, right? So you have these files open, and if I want to add these to the context, I can do a / and just say add open files to context. And then everything open is now in my context. You see config just got added here. I can show you that again. So I'll say add open files to context. Then I can start, asking for whatever I want and fire that off. So these are just a few basic things that will make your life better. Now, of course, I use Vim inside of here. So I can do all my Vim type stuff, but I just can't do any of my custom stuff that I've set up. For example, I have something to copy where I can type space Y and that will copy stuff. That isn't working here. This is just whatever. So, I can still yank and everything, but I don't have the exact same great Neovim experience. But that's the whole point of the video today. It's I don't need that Neovim experience because we're going to be bouncing back and forth between my actual terminal. So I can really get the best of both worlds between this Neovim and this Cursor with the same code base open. Last thing I want to show you is how I've configured Neovim. I have this cool dark theme. I like this one. Maybe you should check it out, but that is beside the point. The main thing to focus on here is this Vim extension. This is how I'm able to use Vim in here. And you'll notice I'm not using the Neovim extension because my Neovim setup is too crazy and it wasn't working well with the Neovim extension. So I like the Vim extension. And this one works really well for me. The only thing that I had to do, it was really bothering me, I couldn't repeat. I didn't have key repeating working. So I had to run, I'm not sure if I ran all of these commands or maybe just a subset of them. But you can check these commands out and you'll want to run something like this if you're on Mac in order to enable key repeating. And that's just when I press J once and then I can, scroll up and scroll down. That's really important for my development experience. So I don't have to repeat it like that. Really annoying. So that's my setup. I guess the last thing I'll show you is my Neovim configuration. So for me, I have this alias, which is NVC. And when I type that, I get into my Neovim configuration, which is here in my .files. repository. So I feel like I should explain this. I think people like when I explain this. So if I look at my ZSH-RC and I wanted to find this NVC command. So I have this set up in my ZSH file. And when I type NVC, it just goes into my Neovim configuration file and it opens up Vim, like it runs the Vim command. So I can show you that again. So if I'm just like, say I'm here just in my code and I type NVC, it immediately like just brings me into my Neovim config. And yeah, so this is my Neovim configuration in this Lua file, and I have all these like, I don't know, like all sorts of stuff. I have all these plugins, so my lazy plugin file, all of this stuff. I have all these like key maps set up. I have like some options. So it's like a really extensive setup. And I have a video how I set this up, which you can check out. I filmed it last year and it's still very relevant. And you can also look at my source code and my .files for this if you want to copy my setup. But the point is, that's how this works. That is not how this works. This is just plain vanilla Vim. And this works well for me. So let's do some stuff. So this system, what I'm looking at, it does retrieval augmented generation, and we can run a query to a language model using this script, this query reg with metadata. And I have some command line options, like we pass a question in, we can have this debug flag. And the feature I want to build is to extend this. I'm going to add another argument to this file. So the first thing I want to do, here's the same corresponding file in Neovim, and I want to run this. I want to test this out. So if I go to my README, then I have, this is how I would run it. And I'm going to say explain agents. And it's actually going to run my system and return the result. So if you're interested in how this works, it's open source. You can check out all of the source code for this thing. I called it Zazenbot 5000. And I also have a series of videos explaining how you can build this yourself if you want to watch that and build something like this. But today we are going to extend this. So let me go back, and you can see down here like my keycaster. It's like you can see why I like developing with Neovim, just the way I can work and use, like I'm a Neovim developer. I like tmux. This is where I want to work. So the feature that I want right now is I want to add a persona, and the persona could be something like, let's say a pirate, you know, or maybe the persona you want is like a university prof. And so I want a list of different personas that you can pass in and get like a response that answers like that person, like that persona would answer. That's the feature. And how we're going to do this is I'm going to start in Neovim, and I'm going to show you how I like to work in Neovim, why I enjoy Neovim, stuff like that. And then at some point we're going to switch over to Cursor, and I'm going to show you what the corresponding experience would look like in Cursor. So this is like a direct side-by-side comparison from a language I'm actually comfortable with and that I can actually build and develop in. So the first thing I would do for this type of feature is I would say add argument, and my Neovim setup, I have all this nice type hinting, like a good development setup. So persona, and the type is a string. There's some choices here, and the choices are going to be, I got some ideas. I'm going to say politician, wannabe, influencer. This is like myself, robot with existential crisis. And then I want to pass that persona in down here. So I'm going to say args.persona, and we're going to pass this into my process question. So if I come up here, this should be a string, and then we have persona, which is going to be another string. And now we got to see like where to deal with that persona. Also down here, we probably want to do persona, the LLM persona, just some lame argument type hint. And we're returning the response string, but this is where I do the LLM stuff. I'm pretty sure it's in here. So I want persona, and now we got to find this function. So get reg response is here, sending question to reg system. So now we need to pass the persona in through here as well. This should be a string. And then we also need persona in here, the LM persona, okay. And so now we're passing it into ask reg question. And finally, this points us to a different file. So I can type GD in Neovim to like get the definition, and I can open up that file. Sorry, I want to close my quick fix. Okay, so now I'm in a different file. Let me just show you that. So I'm in this query reg file. That's where I've defined this reg question. And so now, okay, we need to pass in persona here as a string. Persona. Okay, so now let me just slow down. If I was being smart, I could put this, like I could yank it and repaste it, but then that sort of sucks because as soon as I yank that, like I can't, it's gone. So in Neovim, what you would do, right, is you should put it in a register. So I watch my key bindings down here. Okay, so that put it into this register P, and then, so let me try that again. Sorry, what? The yank, there it is. So I yanked it into the A register. Okay, let me do that again. So I'm gonna just highlight it, and then I'm gonna say yank into A register. So grab it to the A register. What am I doing here? Now I can paste it by doing the same thing, but putting P. So I'm gonna say, okay, access the A register and now paste. Yeah, so access the A register and paste. That means I could do something like this, and then I could always say access the A register, paste, right? So, okay, well, the point is, yeah, I could be a bit more efficient with Neovim, but anyways, because you might have noticed I had to type this out like 3 times in a row. But let's get back to the task. So we have this persona, and we want to use this in our generative model somehow. So see how we have generate question right here? Probably the easiest thing to do would just be like answer like you are a, and then I'll just put in persona. This is like very trash implementation, right? But it'll work. And then so persona, and we're gonna do, we're gonna replace any dashes with a space, right? And maybe I'll just say like question for model, and we'll just sort of put this in here, right? And then I can print that. So print that, we'll put it in here. Great, all right. This should be okay. Maybe a period would be nice. I don't know. Whatever. I'm pretty happy with this, and yeah. Let's give this a shot. So let's just go ahead and run this. So let's try it with the persona of, I don't know, Alex. And this should fail because, yeah, so it's an unrecognized argument. We don't know about persona Alex. Actually, I don't know if we know about, did I screw something up? Let me see here. So if I go back to, I never saved it. Okay, let's save it now. Try this again. So it doesn't know this one, this persona, help. So let's try politician. Okay, so now it's appended that to my question, and okay, it's doing it. Hey, my fellow citizens, let me tell you about agents. That's awesome. Crisis. I'm definitely looking forward to this one most. I don't know why I'm explaining this. What's the point? Wah, wah. All right, whatever. It works. So now let's re-implement this same feature in Cursor. And I'm going to get rid of all this stuff. So now we're going to implement this in Cursor. And I want to just show you how much of a different experience it is. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with this type of autocomplete, but if not, we're gonna sort of check that out. So we're gonna give it a persona, and it's already sort of saying like, okay, type persona, the persona, that's pretty much what I wanted. What else? I wanted some choices. So if I start typing choices, oh look, it just gave me a few choices. Okay, cool, well, I don't want those choices. I want politician. Okay, so look at this, journalist, scientist, kind of giving me ideas. A robot with existential anxiety. Okay, so like it or not, that's the type of experience we're getting. Now let me show you. This is the part that's amazing. So look, it already knows that I want to add it here. So I'll just type accept. And see now here it's saying tab, move to next. Okay, so I'll press tab again. It knows I want to put it in here. So, okay, I'll put it in there. Let me do the type hints. Okay, I want that as string. I want to implement this the same way. So now I want this. Okay, boom, it's already written it for me. That's cool. Next, I want to put it in here, and it figured that out. Okay, now we're going to find this. Let's put it in there. We want that to be a string. That's a string too. Come down. There it is. Okay, persona for the question, processing question, and I could even say with persona. Okay, get the response. Yep, I want to put it in here. And where do we have get response? It's down here. Yep, add that. What about this? Yep, add that down here. Add that in here. Okay, let's go here. Go to the definition. Add that in. Down here. Yep, add persona. This is how I work now. Like it's right. It's how can it's just so it's crazy. Okay, so generate content with question right here. Now this is where, yeah, the autocomplete's slowing down a bit because, so I'm going to say question question with persona. Sure, you are a persona. So it wants me to do it the opposite way. That's kind of cool. But let's not do that. Let's say answer in the style of a persona. Sure, yeah, that makes sense. And persona with question comes down here. Let's print it. And I think that's the feature. So save that, save this. Now I'll come back down here and let's try it out again. So this is, check it out, like my Neovim updated automatically. So, you know, I didn't develop it in Neovim, but I can still come back and, you know, use Neovim if I want. For example, look at this. I can see these git diffs. So I've got like a git diff tool right here. So I can also do stuff like, I don't know, HD. And now I can like actually look at the git diff from all the work that Cursor did. So I can still like develop in Neovim like I like to. And let me go ahead and try and run this. I'll do the influencer. Just in the style of, yeah, so it's a little bit different. I kind of like the politician. Actually, I should run a different question. Let's explain reg. My friends. So this tab completion stuff with Cursor is like so addictive and amazing and incredibly productive, like you saw. And that's in a language where I already know what's going on. So you could just imagine how helpful this is in a language that you don't feel as comfortable with. So now that was a nice simple feature. That was a lot of fun. We're going to build out something that's more difficult. Hey guys, I'm excited to announce a new feature for my course, the AI Engineer Roadmap. And I've added audio to these lessons. So today we're talking about RAG. So if I go to like, I don't know, advanced patterns, and now I've got audio, so you can go ahead and listen to these lessons. This one's 13 minutes long, and the course itself is really long, right? So it's kind of cool to be able to listen to these. But what I did, which I'm really happy with, is like I took these lessons and I summarized them in order to be suitable for text-to-speech format. So it doesn't just like read this out verbatim, it kind of like explains the code. And I also do this for the math in the course. And building that was a lot of fun. And this ended up taking me like a lot longer than I wanted it to. And one cool step I do is I actually feed everything through an LLM. And I'm like, hey, you're a text-to-speech converter system, and take all of the math and convert it to spoken math, and take all the HTML code and convert it to spoken descriptions. So the result was pretty cool, and I think it's worth at least checking out. So you can find that on zazencodes.com. And so there's this idea of grounding chunks in retrieval augmented generation. Here it is. So if I look at here, and okay, so grounding chunks. So what we do is I run a query against my vector database, and then I'm just pulling the first grounding chunk right here, and I call it the top content. And then I get the top title, the top text, and that's it. That's all I use. I only use the first grounding chunk. I want to get more than the first grounding chunk. I want to get like multiple of these and feed them all into the response. Let's test that out. Let's see if we can do something like that. So if I was to start thinking about this with Neovim, right, I'd be like, okay, well this, we don't want to just get, like before this was returning, you know, a tuple, and inside the tuple we had a string and a string, right? But now maybe what I want to do is return, I don't know, like a list of tuples, right, where each is a string. And so how do I do that? Well, okay, so I want to get all this content. So, you know, I get content, and I come in here, content.append, and I want to, you know, append these tuples. So content title, content text, and this comes down here. Now I'm being really brash with this, you know, because I just want to, like this is development, right? This is coding, no problem. But let's just give this problem to Cursor, and I want to show you how much faster it is. Like, it's insane. So now let's go to Cursor, and we're going to build out this feature. So it's this query rag with metadata. That's the only file we need. So let's open up over here. So we've got our chat open. We've got this file in context, and we're going to draft up a little prompt. But first, I'm going to make sure a couple things. The first thing, we got to be in agent mode so it can actually do stuff. That's like a no-brainer. But this auto button, I didn't notice this for a long time. But if you uncheck this, you can go ahead and select the model you want. A lot of you, I'm sure, already know this, but for me, this was a big unlock because I never just run it on auto mode now. I always pick the model that I want for the task that I'm doing. And so you got to consider some stuff, but Cursor's made it pretty easy to understand like the costs and the trade-offs with these different models. So I use Gemini 2.5 Pro when I have a really big code base and I want things to work fast, because this is a very fast model and it's very cheap. It costs X per request. But it is a thinking model. So you need to consider that thinking models might have additional costs associated with them. For example, you could go ahead and pick Claude 3.7 Sonnet, which is 1x per request. But then if you pick the thinking model of Claude 3.7 Sonnet, it's 2x per request. So it costs 2 times as much to use this like thinking version of the model. But the newest model on the block is this Claude 4 Sonnet. So we're definitely going to use that. It's also cheaper right now at time of filming, which is great. So I'm going to definitely pick that one. Right now, I only use one grounding chunk from the RAG search, but I want to show the user multiple matches. Can you add that? Whatever. This is not a well-constructed feature request. Right? I just fired that off. Okay, I'm sure for most of you, yeah, this process is nothing new. But what the point of this video is it's this Duo workflow, right? For me, it turns Cursor into a tool where I can use it when I want the features of Cursor. And then I can go back to Neovim when I want the experience of Neovim and what I like to do over there. So now it's trying to test the modified code. I'm just gonna stop it and we're going back to Alacrity. So now we have a whole bunch of changes and I can see that here with my git diffs here. So if I wanted to see, oh look, it changed something, I could do that in Neovim. And I could say, okay, before we were get metadata from GCS, but now I'm getting a bunch of metadata. That makes sense, right? Because I'm gonna have multiple chunks and I need to get the metadata for each chunk. Anyway, you don't need to follow that, but the point is that I can use my Neovim environment to understand what's happening. I can still work in Neovim, even, and I can also see over here, this file has been changed, cool, and I don't see any other changes, so I can just focus in this file. It's you can use your Neovim setup as well as Cursor, and you can kind of have the best of both worlds. Of course, you can also do it the Cursor way. Oh, click these buttons, that's nice. And honestly, I do that a lot. Depending on how much you enjoy Neovim, this could be a way to have a really cost-effective way to access the best AI tools and productivity systems for AI in the world, which is Cursor right now, and also keep using your Neovim like you like to. So without even let's just try and run this. Okay, let's try it again, but I'm gonna throw a whole different question at it. So I'm gonna say, why is GCP so good? Seems like it's working. Let me tell you, I'm a big GCP fan. Hey, my friends, let me tell you. And so it found me two different matches, which is the feature. That was what I asked for, multiple grounding chunks. Now it did that. And this is awesome. I might just ship this. I think it's good. I think the feature works. Let's look at actually the grounding chunk. So this is where it did it. And do you see how it's pretty much doing the same thing that I asked it to do? But we're not getting a lot of type hints. That's kind of annoying, right? Well, I know somebody who could fix that pretty well. We could ask, go in here, new window, add type hints to this file, and away we go. Okay, so while that works, I'm gonna do my ending spiel for you guys. Thank you very much for watching, and if you've got this far, please leave me a like and consider subscribing, because these things really help me out. And also, I'm making all sorts of videos like this, so if you got this far and enjoyed this and found this beneficial, then you'll get a lot of value out of all of the other content that I'm creating. So I'd just like to conclude, I think there's an actual danger in not adopting these AI tools. And by the way, I'm not talking about using ChatGPT or using Claude or using some kind of cool extension for Neovim. I'm talking about the best state-of-the-art tools like Cursor, maybe Windsurf, maybe Klein, and maybe Claude Code, but those are really expensive. So really, to wrap all this up, what I'm saying is if you're not using a tool like Cursor as a professional engineer in 2025, you're basically working with a hand behind your back. So I'm not saying you have to use this all the time or anything, but I would highly encourage you to get used to using Cursor, because just to pretty much keep up with your peers and with the rest of the workforce, it's pretty much a requirement at this point. That's my personal feeling. So if you've watched this far, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. That's what I'd most be interested in hearing about in the comments. Right, so really hope you learned something from this, and I will see you in the next one. Of course, I will leave some video links for you to pick from, so if you have some time, you could check out one of those right now. Thank you for watching, and namaste.